Hey, welcome everybody. Thanks for coming. We'll call the Corporate Services Committee meeting to order at 9:30 a.m. Right into the Managing Director's report.
Thank you. We have a new guest with us here today. It is my pleasure to introduce Brad Weil, who's the Director of Information Technology. His first day with the city was February 2nd. Brad brings over 20 years of experience in IT leadership, digital transformation, and cybersecurity across government, education, and not-for-profit sectors. His expertise in infrastructure modernization, enterprise applications, and strategic technology planning will help us advance our digital capabilities and deliver secure, scalable solutions that align with our organizational goals. So I'll maybe just turn it over to Brad to introduce himself in a little bit more detail. And yeah.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. Yes, I'm excited to be here. Just a little bit about myself, in addition to what Lola has already stated here, is I've spent most of my career in public and related sectors. There's two different provincial governments, Nova Scotia as well as Alberta. In addition, Legal Aid Alberta and the Alberta Teachers Association, and really just focusing on business transformation, risk management, and then positioning IT as that value add business partner. So as Lola mentioned, this is day 9 for me. So I've heard great things about the organization and the teams, and I'm just really looking forward to getting to know everybody a bit more and getting down to work. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Right on. Excellent. Welcome. Yeah.
Welcome, Brad. And so what was the last name again, Brad?
Wild.
Wild, just wild, like how it sounds.
Yeah.
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 Just,
Yep.
no E on the end?
There is WILE.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Welcome, Brad.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hey.
Right on.
Thanks, Brad. My other update is just a reminder that the Ipsos is currently conducting the 2026 community survey. They will be doing their data collection in February, and we should have the report available by the end of March. And then shortly after that will come to council with a presentation.
Can I speak to that? I actually got a phone call.
Okay.
You're not eligible.
I did. I know. She cut me off real fast once I said I'm elected official. So
Yeah, and that.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Yeah, and that is the intent, is that we want to ensure that we get a community response. So if you are employed by the city, or your spouse or family members employed by the city, they will say, thank you for your time, but we're not going to continue the survey. So they really want to get that community sense. So yeah, the survey questions for 2026 are the standard questions that we have used in the previous surveys that were completed in 2022 and 2024. And this is done to ensure that the city has the ability to compare the data across the number of years to see how we're doing. The survey captures the opinions of residents across several areas, including overall quality of life in the community, overall satisfaction with services, facilities, programs, administration, and city council, customer service, communication, and public participation, property taxes and financial planning, and priorities for the city. So I guess just awareness that people in the community will be receiving these phone calls throughout the month of November.
So I look forward to seeing the results. Appreciate to hear over here. Is there also an online component? That's a separate survey, but that's live right now too? I think
Yes, it is separate from this survey, that we're going to take the data from this specific survey and report back to council. But we do have an online version that is on our city website, and Shape Your City, I believe, or
yeah, Shape Your City can link to it. Yes, but the survey itself is an external link hosted by Ipsos, and same questions and everything. It's just that they'll report the results separately.
Okay, and would we receive the reporting around the same time?
Yes, yeah, it will both be reported, but one would be considered statistically relevant and the other one is just community input.
Okay,
yeah,
excellent. Thank you. Okay, did you have anything else?
Those were my only updates.
Okay, we'll move on to the municipal tax, customer life cycle, and tax recovery.
All right, thank you. We have Denise Schmaltz here. She's the manager of customer care and billing. And she'll provide us an overview of the property taxes, the tax recovery process when taxes are not paid, and the tax auction process. So I'll just turn it over to Denise to walk us through the presentation.
Thank you. And through the chair, thank you for allowing me to do the presentation on what a typical tax customer will see when they go through their municipal tax life cycle. We'll just start with the basis of taxation, and municipal property taxes are the major revenue source of local governments. The Municipal Government Act governs the taxation, and it's drafted on the principle of protecting people's interests on their properties. Taxes fund services like police and fire protection, road maintenance, snow clearing, parks and swimming pools, and public transit. Property taxes are not a fee for service, but they're a way of distributing costs for local governments. It starts with the operating budget, and it determines the amount of taxes required to balance that budget after all the other revenue sources are considered. A tax rate is then applied to the property assessed value to determine the taxes payable by the owner of that property. Using a budget-based approach, calculating the tax rate based on the total assessment base. The MGA then also determines that City Council then also does a property tax bylaw and approves the property tax rates. Just going to go through the typical, this is a very busy slide, the typical life cycle of a tax customer. The MGA basically states that the annual taxes each year, your tax notice covers the time period of January 1st to December 31st. The typical life cycle may start at the time of a property sale. So when someone is purchasing a property, generally their lawyer will then request what's a tax certificate. So a tax certificate is basically the certified balance on the tax account. With property taxes, taxes stay with the property, not the person. So it is in due diligence that the lawyers will then request a tax certificate from the city showing if there's any outstanding taxes and how they distribute it between the two buyers, the buyer and the seller. Tax certificates are done online. It is on the city website, so there's access to anyone through tax certificates. The central database for our tax and assessment system comes from Alberta Land Titles, and Alberta Land Titles is our source of information. So we download files from Land Titles the 1st and the 15th of every month. Alberta Land Titles captures any property sales that have happened, any name changes or subdivision changes that are required. Upon downloading the land titles file, a school declaration is then mailed out to the new property owner. And the Education Act requires that each property owner fill out a school declaration and to whether to direct their taxes to public or to a separate school system if one exists. If no response is received, it's considered undeclared. We also offer and provide education at the same time that we send out the school declaration, that there is the opportunity to register themselves for their e-tax on the city website. That's a portal that will give customers their balances, their notices, all of the information about the property tax account, as well as their assessment values. They also have a second option to enroll in e-billing as well, instead of having a paper notice mailed. There's different payment options that are offered. The tax installment payment plan is a payment plan that takes the estimated annual taxes and divides it by 12 monthly payments. And a customer can enroll into the TIP program and enter monthly payments. When they're on TIP, they do not get charged penalty because their payment plan will span from January 1st to December 1st of each year. In February, assessment notices get mailed out to the public. And so this year, the mailing date for the assessment notices is February 27th. On that assessment notice, there is what's called a complaint date. The complaint date's an important date for our ratepayers to be aware of. That complaint date is May 6th. The taxes can,
Sorry, complaint date, is that someone who is essentially has an issue with the tax, right? They're saying we disagree with the amount or.
Yes, the assessment.
The assessment value.
Yeah, you would be disputing the value of the property.
with taxes, a ratepayer cannot appeal the tax rate or the taxes owing. Their opportunity to appeal is on the assessed value of their property. So if they do not agree with the assessed value from their assessment notice, the first step would be to contact the assessment department and discuss their property to determine how that value was. If they are in disagreement of that value, they have the opportunity then to file an appeal or an official complaint. In mid-April, the property tax bylaw will go to council for consideration. Based on that property tax bylaw, when the tax rate is approved for the year, the tax notice is then generated and mailed out on May 21st. We have approximately 30,000 tax notices that get mailed out, producing 118 million in revenue. On June 30th of this year is the tax due date. The tax due date is typically the last business day in June. July 1st, for any taxes unpaid, monthly penalties start accruing. Each month, the ratepayer will receive an overdue statement and a notice advising of what their balance is outstanding. Supplementary tax and assessment notices get mailed out in October. Generally, there's about 100 or so that the supplementary assessment notice and tax notice picks up, and that is new construction or completed construction that has happened. That due date for taxes to be paid, as well as the complaint date, would be December 31st. So this is typically the life cycle of what a customer would see if they first bought their property. January 1st, in the MGA, January 1st would be what is considered 1 day of arrears. So even though our bylaw will say property taxes are due the last business day of June, it's considered unpaid, but not in arrears. And that's because the MGAA covers the tax notice from January 1st to December 31st. Each municipality has the option of choosing when their tax due date is. So under legislation, January 1st is the first day of property tax arrears.
Sorry, would there not be interest charged between June 1st and January 1st if somebody was in arrears?
July 1st would be the first date of penalty, and then each month after.
Okay.
They do get charged penalty, yes.
So just to follow up on the supplementary tax and assessment notice, is that always the case of construction being completed that adds value to the assessment, right?
Mhm.
Okay. And you said it was about 100 of the 30,000. Yeah, so it's a low number.
It will vary from year to year depending on construction. Yeah.
So some important dates for our ratepayers to be aware of, and this is on our website as well, is February 27th is when the assessment notice is mailed. May 6th would be their official complaint date on the assessed value. May 21st is when we will mail out the annual property tax notices. June 30th, taxes are considered due, and that is the last day before the due date to sign up for TIP. So the TIP covers, the tax installment plan covers from January to December of each year. If a ratepayer signs up late, as in June, they would then pay their 6 months missed payments plus a 2% administration fee. And then they would continue on the TIP plan for the remainder of the year, and they wouldn't be subject to late penalties or monthly penalties. Mid-October, supplementary taxes and tax notices are mailed. December 31st is the legislated date for the school declarations to be effective. Any school declarations that are entered throughout the year become effective January 1st of the next year. December 31st is also the date to sign up for the tax installment payment plan with no fee to start for the next year. If you're already on tip, you're automatically renewed. Nothing is required on that. And then December 31st would be the supplementary assessment complaint date as well. So in tax recovery, there's a difference between current taxes versus arrears taxes. So when we look at this schedule here, January 1st in the MGA, it says taxes are considered imposed but not levied. We set your bylaw, the due date being the last business day of June, which would be June 30th. July 1st, taxes would be unpaid, and that's when the penalty then of 8.75 would be presented for unpaid balances on July 1st. August 1st and each month after, there's a penalty of a 1.25%. And then December 31st, taxes unpaid are still considered current. It's not until the next day that taxes are considered 1 day in tax arrears. 1 year after, through the Municipal Government Act, 1 year in arrears, greater than 1 year in arrears, is when tax recovery process starts. So that is a whole year later.
Just so I'm clear, and I appreciate that you're answering these questions for me because I'm still learning a lot about this stuff. So when we say taxes are considered imposed but not levied, so that's the previous year's taxes, right? So let's say if we start here January 1st, or are we saying, is that the current year's
That's,
taxes?
that's current year. So we pay the current year's June 30th. So we're paying for the first 6 months of the year and then the rest of that calendar year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's why it says tax, okay, taxes due June 30th.
Due 30th. So January 1st, they're imposed. So January 1st going forward, they're accumulating, but they're not levied yet until
Okay.
June 30th. And then you pay up to from January 1 to June 30th and then July 1 to
So you're paying,
December
yeah,
31st.
you're paying the 6 months of what you've already accumulated, but then you're paying in advance
and then on the other 6 months.
the other 6 months.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. I think I got that right.
And then
That's correct,
and if you
yeah.
don't pay that by July 1st, then you get an 8.75% penalty on all of it, not just on the 6 months that's accrued, but on the 6 months that's ahead as well.
So, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So the MGA says considers it imposed but not levied, so that each municipality has the opportunity to set their tax due date when they want. So some municipalities may say January 1st, they're imposing their annual taxes and they're due then. Some municipalities could choose March, some can choose October, some can choose December 31st. So the MGA leaves it up to the city council through the tax rate bylaw to determine the due date. So typically in Medicine Hat, that's always been mid-year, which is the last business day in June. Yeah,
So
but
through
the
the,
taxes for 2026 that we levy in May that are due June 30th cover the time period from January 1st to December 31st.
so through the chair, how do we come up with the 8.75% penalty? Does that change, fluctuate from year to year, or is that the going rate at the time, or how does it work?
Through the chair, very good question. So we set penalty rates through bylaw, so that comes before city council as well. We use the 7 mid-sized municipalities as a market indicator to determine how we are calculating that rate so that it is fair in terms of what other municipalities the same size of Medicine Hat are charging. And so that's reviewed every budget cycle as well. So the 2026 tax rate is at the 8.75. Now, the 8.75 on July 1st is typically higher because we take the annual tax rate, and because taxes are imposed and considered January 1st, it's January 1st when you take the annual by 12 months. You're missing the first 6 months or 7 months. So that's where the 8.75 comes. If it was done monthly, it would be 1.25.
Okay, that was my next question, right? So So where do we fit on that scale, the 7? Are we in the middle or? Like, you know what I mean? Because you take a comparative, so where do we fit in that? Are we in the middle or do you
Yes.
just take an average,
Yeah, we're in the average.
an average of the 7? Okay. Is that what the other communities do too, or do they do different things?
Each community does it a little bit differently, but generally we tend to be typically in the same range. Some municipalities may charge 18%, some may charge 10%. Right, so each municipality is different on the way they calculate it. They also have through bylaw the ability to not do it monthly. So some may do 4% March, 4% July, 4%. So each municipality has the opportunity to be unique on the way that they calculate penalties. We take the philosophy that penalties are a monthly charge because that's how we charge on all of our other penalties, on all of our other receivable systems.
I think it's good to know because we're probably going to get asked the questions, why so much when it happens. So, no, I like that. And can I ask another question on TIF? Do we have lots of people on TIF?
Yes.
Is it going up as the years go by? Like, I don't know how long you've been here, so you probably see an increase in that department. Is that true?
So through the chair, tip generally is about 35% of our tax base that is on tip. We also have mortgage companies sometimes pay in agreement with a customer's mortgage that they will pay. So we have a high percentage of mortgage companies that pay as well. And then also we do accept credit cards online as well for tax payments and then in person as well. For customers that are having affordability issues, that's when we often will see them come in and register for TIP in typically May or June, so that they don't have to, they have the opportunity to avoid the 8.75% penalty and register for TIP with a 2% administration fee.
But there's no, like, we're not, there's no extra charge for going on tip. There's no extra charge for going on tip, right? Like, they don't pay.
Well, there's the 1.35.
For the chair with the TIP plan, and the tax installment payment plan is also through bylaw. What that looks like, if you register late, you have to make up your late payments. So if you're registering, say in May, you would make up your January to May payments, and then you would pay a 2% fee on those missed payments.
But if you sign up earlier, like in December, then you're
No.
not getting any.
There's no charge.
There's no charge.
And Councillor Varga, to your question about if you get questions about the 8.75 initial one, that is just the monthly penalty fee is 1.25. That 8.75 is
After the 6.
7 months worth,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So they're actually only getting charged 1.25. They just haven't paid the interest.
It just looks like loss in perception, right? That,
Yeah,
so,
but it really is 1.25.
Yeah. yeah. Can I ask through the chair, another question? Do we let the people know about this? Like city residents, that this is how it works and this is what might happen to you? Like an information page that says this is how taxation works? Does that go out or is it on our website? It's on our website.
It is on our website. With the annual tax notice, do include a property tax brochure as well that outlines the penalties as well and when the due date is. We do also run social media campaigns as well, advertising TIP, and that tax notice have been sent out and what the due date is.
First I always hear is, I didn't know about that. I didn't know about that and I never heard about that. So I'm just asking the question, right? So.
And through the chair, an interesting part about that, penalties cannot be waived, right? That is through bylaw. Once it's imposed on a taxation account, it forms part of the tax. The only way to remove that is through city council approval. So we will remove if we have made an administrative error of some sort on that account. We then will waive the penalty and make that whole. Any other requests for penalty removals would be coming through to council if they deemed it fair and equitable to be canceled. The legislation in the MGA also states that tax notices are deemed to be received 7 days after they've been sent, regardless of the address that it's being sent to. That it is the ratepayer's responsibility to know that when taxes are due each year, and it is their responsibility to be updating Alberta land titles if they have an address change. That's our source of information. When they update Alberta land titles, that's how we know that their address has also changed.
So in saying that, when you've got a renter in a house, it gets sent to the renter. Is that correct? No, or does it get sent to the person that owns the house?
It would get sent to whoever the owner has listed on
Okay.
Alberta land titles. So if they have updated their address to their permanent residence and not their rental, then they will get it.
Just hoping that that's the way it happened, because sometimes it gets lost in the process. So perfect.
And that's the beauty of having an online portal. So we launched an online property tax portal last year. So it is brand new, fresh, a year old. And so we're hoping to engage more of our ratepayers into utilizing that so that they have that access at their fingertips 24 hours to be able to look and register. We are running a promotion in correlation with Earth Day that is coming up. And when the assessment notices are getting mailed, anyone who registers for e-billing and an e-tax portal will be entered in an opportunity to win a $500 City of Medicine hat gift card. And we'll be running the same promotion during when tax notices are mailed, just to encourage payers to sign up to. All right, taxes are not paid. So the MGA is very subscriptive on property taxes. There's not a lot of flexibility on that. So tax recovery again begins when you're greater than 1 year in arrears. It covers 3 different scenarios for the recovery related to land, tax recovery related to designated manufactured homes, and then also not related to land at all. As we're talking about properties that are governed by Alberta land titles, there's no central registry for manufactured homes. There's different processes. Today's presentation, we are going to be talking on tax recovery related to the land. The tax recovery on land, manufacturing homes have the same deadlines as well. But after 1 year in arrears, the MGA states a municipality must annually, not later than March 31st, prepare a tax arrears list. That list then gets forwarded to Alberta land titles, in which they put what's called a tax recovery notification on the property land title. Prior to this happening, the collections team will have communicated with the customer, along with the ongoing monthly statements that they're receiving. They will have communicated to them, we are about to register you a tax notification on your property. Please make payment arrangements or please pay by this date to avoid that registration. We have no flexibility. The municipality has to register. Anything outstanding 1 year in arrears is registered on their actual property title. When that is registered on their property title, Alberta land titles will then notify every other registered interest on that property. So if they have a mortgage company or anyone else that has a registered interest, Alberta land titles will send the property owner along with all of the registered parties to say, City of Medicine Hat has registered a tax arrears notification. The property may be sold and offered for auction in 1 year by the next March 31st. In the MGA, we can offer a property for sale March 31st, so 1 year after registration, up to a maximum of 2 years. We've always chosen the last possible legal day to hold our tax sale auctions. Public auction then.
Sure. Sorry, just for clarity, we're saying that they're given 1 year, but sorry, if I caught that correctly, we have the flexibility to give them 2 years?
That is correct.
And are you saying that we have chosen to give them 2 years just to ensure that they have that time?
That is,
Okay.
In
that
some
makes sense.
cases,
Yeah.
yes.
Thank you.
So this is just showing a timeline of what the tax recovery looks like. So it is a 4-year process by the time they reach from unpaid taxes to actual tax sale option. So it is a long process. There's a lot of communication opportunities and points that happen in the 4 years as well. So the properties that are coming up for tax sale auction this March 31st of 2026 would have had unpaid taxes from 2022. So that's where the timeline begins, is unpaid taxes on July 1st, 2022. January 1st, 2023 would be their 1 day in arrears. The MGA says any tax arrears greater than 1 year must have a tax notification registered. So that's what takes us then to 2024 is considered January 1st would be greater than 1 year. March 27th is when we have registered the tax notifications on the properties. Prior to August 2024, Alberta Land Title's responsibility is to then communicate to all the registered interests as well that the property is in tax arrears with the City of Medicine Hat. Through this process, we're also communicating with the registered interest parties as well as with the property owners. 2024 taxes would be levied. 2025 taxes would be levied. Then we move into January of 2026. The MGA prescribes advertising that has to happen in regards to tax sale auction. And so January 15th, it is all of the properties on the tax sale auction list have to be advertised in what's called the Alberta Gazette. And that was done on January 15th of this year. Coming forward next in, which is through the MGA as well, City Council must set what's called the reserve bid, which is the minimum sale price at auction based on the fair market value of the property, as well as set the terms and conditions of the sale of auction. So a briefing note is coming forward. It's in today's agenda as well on that reserve bid. So the reserve bid is then calculated on fair market value. And that is on the engage a local realtor to give us what they believe is the fair market value, as well as our assessment team as well determined. So we then correlate those two numbers to see what the fair market value would be. And that would be the minimum reserve price. The MGA is drafted to protect property owners' interests. So some provinces, some other jurisdictions, they have the ability to sell a property for tax arrears amount. In Alberta, it is for fair market value at auction. So what would then happen is we would determine the fair market value. We don't have the opportunity to go into the property or see it because we are not the owner of that property. It's more of a tabletop exercise on what that fair market value looks like. Some of the conditions that would be listed in the tax sale is that potential buyers at the auction do not have the opportunity to go into that property ahead of time. And they also have to deal with tenancy issues if there are tenancy issues with that in that property. So the reserve bid recommendations will come forward to council and it's slated for March 2nd. And that also has to follow in the timeline to allow us to meet the auction timeline. After approval of the reserve bid, that is then advertised in the local Medicine Hat News as well for what the actual reserve bid price is. Through this whole time, we are also working with the property owners. We've recently went out and did home visits to each of the properties to talk to the owners to make sure that they know, because we recognize also that sometimes our ratepayers may be in payment overload and not opening their mail, payment avoidance. So we want to make sure that we've actually spoken to them, sat down and said, here's some opportunities. Let us help advocate with your mortgage company. What do you need assistance on? We also have the opportunity to enter into an additional legal agreement with them if they can maintain a payment obligation with us to avoid tax auction. On that reserve bid that you'll see come forward, you'll notice that some properties may be blacklisted or black struck out. And that means that they've either made payment on those, it's a living document until it reaches council and up to tax auction sale. They have that opportunity to pay their tax arrears at any point in time, right up to the tax sale auction date of March 31st. Full payment then would discharge the tax notification on file.
Perfect. And I think Councillor Young has some questions.
Thank you. This is really helpful. Just a few questions. How often does this happen? I mean, obviously it happens every year, but how many properties on in a yearly basis, or are the value of the properties, are we seeing this happen? Is this handful? Is this dozens?
The chair, we start the list each year, probably about 250 properties as that we start working with to avoid the tax registration or the tax notification. When we actually register, we have anywhere from 80 properties to 100 each year that get registered. When it moves down, as we're working through the process on the reserve bid, typically each year it'll start out at a list of possibly 10, so maybe 10 properties, 10 manufactured homes. By the time it reaches tax sale auction, it could be 1 or 2 properties.
Okay, so it's pretty, yeah. So through the process, usually people are figuring out ways to pay. So what happens to the mortgage? Like, so let's say it's a $100,000 home property, whatever. We sell it, you know, all this happens and they get all these taxes. We sell it, but if they still own a mortgage. So do we get 100% of the proceeds from that? Or do we only get what is owed from a tax perspective and then the remainder is given back to the property owner?
Through the chair, when we go through, so the MGA does prescribe the manner in which that happens. And so when we do sell at property tax sale auction, if we sell, the city then keeps 5% as an administration fee on that. We pay off the tax arrears. The city takes precedent over mortgage companies other than Crown. And so we would then be looking at a current updated land title to determine who gets next. Then all of the other registered interests get paid first. Then the remainder would then go to the property owner. If it is a questionable title that we're not sure, then they would have to make application and go through the King's bench.
Okay, that makes sense. And I guess another question. What is I think that the biggest reason for this happening? Is it that people just can't pay their taxes? I mean, you're giving them 4 years. And so this still happens to a couple properties. Is it because the property has become abandoned? Is it because maybe it's a company that no longer exists? Like, yeah, maybe that's more of a philosophical question. I don't know, but I guess, do you see a reason why people allow this to happen? Is it purely because they don't have the money?
Through the chair, that tends to be the reason, is affordability issues, right? Because it is, they're paying their payment obligations based on necessity at the time, right? So they need groceries, they need gas, they need other things covered. Because this spans a 4-year period, they have more opportunities to delay that as well. We had noticed a new trend that is happening from mortgage companies is typically when we've seen a mortgage company listed in the past, we knew that they would bail them out at the last moment, right before auction. We knew that they would most likely pay the tax arrears so that they remain the #1 top priority interest in the property. The trend the last couple of years We're also experiencing that they're having defaulted payments as well. And so they're making the decision at that time to say, you know what, well, let's the city do the work, we'll get paid.
We'll get our portion.
Exactly. There is affordability issues on some of the properties. We do have different challenges with the designated manufactured homes as well. The property taxes on their accounts tend to be lower, but affordability along with lot rent is also greater on that demographic.
And final question, is this more residential versus commercial? Like, are we seeing it happen more with residential or do we see it happen? Because I think I've seen some commercial that comes up once in a while. So, yeah, is it more residential versus commercial?
Through the chair. Yes, typically it is residential. We will have a few commercial properties every year that do appear on the list as well.
Yeah, thank you.
I think over my experience on being on corporate service before, it's one or two that only come at the end of the whole process. Not a big number, right? And most of the time it's covered by the end of that process, right? So it's very small. It's very small, yeah. So I was uproared in it when I heard it the first time too. I'm going, oh my God, they're gonna sell all these places. They are gonna be upset. And it's not. Then by the end, it was one or two, right? So, right. But we got to go through the process.
All right, so then this is just highlighting the options through the Municipal Government Act on land. The process when a property is in tax arrears. So as we talked about, we prepare the arrears list and notify the owner, and that's March of every year. The tax recovery notification is registered on their land title. They do have the right to pay at any point in time, and when we receive payment, we'll discharge that tax notification. The registrar, so Alberta Land Titles Registrar, will also give notification to the owner as well as all the interested parties. We then advertise the auction, council sets the reserve bid, and then the auction is held March 31st, typically of every year. And again, we wait to the last legislative day to hold the auction for the ratepayers' benefit. And we hold the auction, and we hold it at City Hall. Typically, we do not sell any properties at the actual auction. So we have the auction, but again, anyone interested in the property, we disclose everything that we do know about the property, but we don't know at this point if there's any environmental conditions, any liabilities. We do know tenancy at that point. So unless a potential buyer is particularly interested in that property or has firsthand knowledge of that property, they may attend the auction and bid on that property. And again, there is no deal. It is what's considered fair market value because we need to protect the actual property owner's interest and we can't sell it out from under them. So if the property is not sold at auction, we have opportunities and different steps that we can take after that. So if it is not sell at auction, we can continue working with payment plans with that property owner if they are interested in reviving the title at some point in time. We can, if we thought it was responsible, we could take the property and transfer it into the City of Medicine Hat's name. We typically would not do that until we would conduct environmental assessment on that and be aware of any liabilities that are happening. We have the opportunity to also sell the property individually, list it with a realtor, or list it for what we determine could be fair market value with having more information in that. So typically after the auction, if it is not sold, we will go to the property, take management rights, which is allowed through the MGA. We will change the locks. We will put a notice on the door, and we'll be checking that property. We will then arrange for an environmental assessment to look for any contamination, any structural issues, and we will work with the city to see other city departments to see, do we want this property? Can we market this property as is? And how do we go about selling it? Typically, we like to work with the property owner if they're still interested in retaining their title. We have the opportunity also to charge them rent at any time, which then we would apply against their property taxes. However, that tends to be unsuccessful. If they're not paying their taxes, they're not going to pay us rent either. But we do have also, anytime until we physically dispose of the property or sell the property, that landowner still has the opportunity to pay and have full revival of their title. So as we go through the collection process, highly governed by the Municipal Government Act, we hold the auction on the last legislated day. Our goal is to have no properties up for auction. And we work with the customers to avoid the tax sale. We do the monthly notices, the phone calls, the emails. We offer a tax arrears payment plan. Prior to auction, we also have through the MGA the ability to enter into a payment legal agreement, which we typically enter into in the very first quarter of the year. We also work with the mortgage companies and other registered interests obligations, or if they are going to assist, and then we do the home visits with the properties. So this next slide is just basically giving a 10-year overview or history of what the tax sale auction looked like. And starting with the number of properties that you would have seen or council would see on the reserve bid to what it looks like after the reserve bid. So if we look at 2025, we had 10 properties that were on the reserve bid and we had no properties at the day of auction. We were able to cancel the auction on March 31st. In 2024, we had 14 properties on the reserve bid and one that was offered but not sold at auction, which we've made payment restitution with and has cleared that title in the interim. And so as we go through the history, in the last 20 years, the city has sold 8 properties after auction in a 20-year history van through the tax recovery process. The other properties that have went through this process have been able to reinstate the properties on their own. So we have a high success rate with leaving it last legislative day and also all of the payment opportunities that are given. That concludes the presentation. Is there any questions?
I had 3, but one was already answered. Just on assessments, how many reviews would you see in a regular year? How many requests would you have from residential or non-residential to review their assessment? Or appeal, I guess.
Yeah, I can help with that one. So that also fluctuates. I believe, and you're going to see the presentation, I believe, on Monday or Tuesday. I believe that there was like around 89 from last year that came forward as concerns on their assessments. I think only 2 went to appeal board. I might have the numbers wrong. It might be like 4. So normally what we do the same thing that Denise's team does on the assessment side of things is we will work with the property owners to come to some mutual agreement on where their assessment valuation will be. Again, we want to eliminate the amount that go to appeal, but if we can't come to consensus with the property owner, then they do have the right to appeal. It will go to the appeal board to be heard, and then the appeal board will make a decision based on our assessment department putting forward their position, and then the property owner or the tax agent would put forward their position, and then it would be determined by the board on where they rule.
Okay. And then my other question, you probably can't answer, but on the distribution or the school board declaration, does that money really go in two separate pots? Do you know?
Through the chair, so, the Education Act requires us to track it separately. How they distribute it, my understanding is regardless of how it's designated and coming in from the municipality, they top up per student at each school.
Okay.
But we still have to track
Yeah.
the declarations. And it is declarations based on Medicine Hat. We have a separate school system. So the school declarations that go out are based on faith, and that's through the Education Act. And the question on the school declaration is, are you Roman Catholic faith, yes or no?
Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
and each municipality has to track that, the school declarations.
That was all my questions. Do you guys have anything?
I think all my questions were answered.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Tax sale 2026, next item.
Hey, well, Denise did such a thorough job going through that presentation. I don't have to go through the details of this item, but I will note that we are bringing forward the 2026 public tax auction for properties and tax arrears. The auction, as Denise mentioned, will occur on March 31st, 2026. So tax collection is governed by the MGA to ensure fair and timely collection of outstanding taxes, and the MGA prescribes the manner in which tax collection must be conducted. So council will need to approve the sale price or the reserve bid of the properties that are on the list for tax auction, and I won't go into detail because I think Denise covered that quite well. You can see on the briefing note that we have, for March 31st, we had 9 properties and 8 designated manufacturer homes that were on the tax auction list. However, as you can see, that list is now down to 4 properties and 7 designated manufactured homes. As Denise mentioned, we continue to work with the property owners to set up acceptable legal payment arrangements, and we will continue to work with each property owner on this list until the last day of March 31st. So as this briefing note comes forward to council, it'll come to council for March 2nd for approval. You may see some of the properties striked off this list at that time, so this list could change. Yeah, as Denise mentioned, we choose the last possible legislated date to hold the auction in order to provide the owner the longest time to arrange for payments. We want to work with the property owner to have their taxes paid. It is the city's preference to have no properties offered for tax auction. And so Denise's team in customer care and collections, they work very hard with the property owner to set up legal payment arrangements prior to that tax auction date. So that's that item.
Need to do something to pass it on to council or not?
To agree that it can go forward, you don't need to vote on it.
Council,
Yeah. Yep.
Yep.
I think it's important to note that this is not something that the city is
To do.
yeah, it's not something the city's trying to do to like the city is operating in bad faith or just trying to get as much money as possible. It's like it sounds like there's a lot of engagement and the city is trying to work as much as possible with owners to make sure they don't ultimately, even after the fact of the sale, there's still, I think I just read something that said over the past 10 years, for manufactured homes anyways, 54% of property owners have paid their tax arrears after the tax sale auction. So yeah, so even after the auction, we still want to give them that opportunity. So I think it's important.
Well, that goes back to only 8 properties in 20 years who
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
gone fully through the process.
Yeah.
Right? That's not very many.
Yeah. And this is a requirement of the MGA, right? We're just following the MGA.
Thank you through the chair. Yeah, I wanted to add that this is just a MGA requirement. I've seen municipal inspections in smaller communities where administration wasn't following these guidelines and these requirements by the MGA and were not necessarily penalized, but it was mentioned within the inspection that that municipal affairs certainly wasn't impressed that they weren't
Yeah.
following their obligations. So we don't have any wiggle.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Okay,
Thank you.
dishonored payments bylaw.
We are asking council to approve first reading to bylaw 4869, which amends the dishonored payments bylaw to reduce the 2026 fee for dishonored payments from $44 to $10 effective April 1st, 2026. This reduction is to align with the change in the federal regulation that will prohibit banks from charging more than $10 for NSF or non-sufficient fund transactions on personal accounts. The intent of the regulation is to reduce consumer costs, prevent fee stacking, and ease financial pressures for individuals experiencing short-term cash falls. The city processes just over 1,300 dishonored payments per year. The dishonored payment fee is designed to encourage customers to avoid sufficient funds transfers through their financial institutions and to offset the city's administration costs associated with processing, reversing, rebilling, and collecting new payments. Reducing the fee to $10 will result in a revenue reduction of $45,000, but we feel that that can be managed within our existing budget, so no budget amendment is required. And just to note that this is not a requirement for municipalities to reduce the fee, but it does give the city an opportunity to align and provide some relief to our vulnerable residents.
Fee reduction.
I
A
agree.
news story here.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you bringing this forward. I mean, yeah, I think it's great. Your point there, Lola, is that, so we're following the federal government. They amended the Financial Consumer Protection Framework to reduce the fee by regulated banks, right?
Right.
Down to $10 is the cap that banks can put.
Right.
We're in a bit different position because we're a municipality, not a bank, but we're taking that framework and we're applying it to this to say, we want to follow that as well.
Yep.
Right. So
Correct.
going from 44 down to 10 and with a reduction of 45,000, you said, and ultimately. Yeah. But I think that's important. I think it's important to highlight that. Yeah, I mean, I know it'll be appreciated. Sure.
Okay, Brian, did you have anything you want?
Not on this, no.
Okay,
No,
so
that's good.
So we support this,
Yeah.
recommending this to council.
Yeah. Is there anything we're missing in here or like that's just straightforward?
Did you want to add anything, Denise?
Yes, council has always indicated a desire to help the most vulnerable segments in our community. And this does give that opportunity to do that to the ones that are struggling, that we are aware of. There is not the opportunity on utilities to do a reduction based on classes. It has to be one rate size. So this is a great opportunity to be able to implement a reduction for the vulnerable.
And sorry, question, does this apply to every single type of fee that is charged by the city, or is it specifically only related to utilities? Yeah,
And through the chair, all NSF payments to the
it
city.
doesn't matter what it is. It's great.
The annual community warmth update.
Yeah, so this is a good news story. The Community Warmth Program has been in place since 2010. Community Warmth is available to City of Medicine Hat utility customers that are having difficulty paying their utility bills. A person may be eligible for assistance if they have received a disconnect warning, have not received assistance from Community Warmth in the last year, and are willing to meet with the Salvation Army to fill out an application form and provide proof of income of all household members for the current year. Community Warmth is funded directly by customer donations and administered by the Salvation Army with no additional fees. Since the program began in 2010, a total of $383,000 has been donated to the program. And that has provided 668 families with utility assistance. In 2025, the total donations received for community warmth was just over 24,000, and that provided 25 families with utility assistance. So maybe I'll turn it over to Denise if you want to provide some additional information or maybe highlight how community members can donate to this program.
The chair. So community warmth donations is completely voluntary for customers that would like to donate. There's many options for them to donate. They can donate $1 on their monthly utility statement, $5. So they can go onto the website and donate through their monthly utility statement. It shows up as a line item on their utilities, or they can come to City Hall and make a direct donation into community warmth or down to the Salvation Army. So currently we have about 237 customers who donate through their utility statement, and the monthly contribution amount is $1,724. So that's what gets forwarded to the Salvation Army to use each month to support clients in need.
And you would get, if you donated on your utility bill monthly throughout the year, you would get a tax receipt at year end from the Salvation Army, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Any donation amounts greater than $10 get a tax receipt from Salvation Army. We provide that data to Salvation Army so that they can generate their tax receipts.
And one more question with regards to that. Is it the Salvation Army that you apply to and they evaluate whether you qualify, whether your need qualifies? Like, it's this, the city doesn't have to do that part of the job, right? It's the Salvation Army that qualifies you for assistance.
That is the collections team will advocate on behalf of a customer. So there is provincial supports in place as well. And provincial supports basically say in order for them to help, they want any customers looking for utility assistance to exhaust local opportunities first. So once that $1,700 is exhausted in a month, collections would then advocate the customer to then apply through Alberta Works. And they work closely with the Salvation Army. Salvation Army does do the intake with the customer and does set up the meeting. They will require a bank statement and proof of income for who is living at that residence. And they'll work with the client there. They do a fantastic job that they can combine assistance with. So it's just not utility assistance, but as they're working with that customer, they can do budget sessions with them, teaching them on budget, cooking sessions, and food security as well. Also, I'd like to highlight that there a new provincial system called 211 has been launched as well. So any resident looking for assistance of any type, rental assistance, utility assistance, help crisis lines, mental health, 211 is a web portal that provides all of the assistance available. It also is a text message number that residents can use as well, and a 24-hour call center as well if they're looking for other supports.
Excellent. Questions?
So it's great. I do notice that like if I look at the chart there, you said 2021 COVID makes sense, but then I think from 2023 to 25, we're seeing a downward trend. Families assisted, we go from 39 to 27 to 25, which I don't think is a bad thing. You know, ultimately it's less people, but then we're seeing as well the amount that's being given go down a little bit. I don't think it's something to be super concerned about, but I think the question I'm asking myself is, this is a great program. I just want to make sure that, are we promoting it? And it sounds like we are. But is there, excuse me, is there, sorry. Apologies, I've been fighting a bit of a cold, but is there anything else that we could be doing from the city's perspective? Sorry.
I was gonna ask too.
Thanks, Joe.
How can, this is a great program, and I've actually done a fundraiser before this many years ago. How can we, I mean, this isn't a city mandate or anything, but how can we
Thanks, Joe.
get those numbers up? That, like, it would be good to see the numbers of usage going down, but the money still being up there. That would be less people needing it. But I think what we're seeing is we're giving out what we get, right?
Yeah.
How could we get, maybe that's something for us to think about. How could we
People to
entice the
put
people?
people $10 or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, what could we be doing? And,
Yeah.
and I recognize people are,
Yeah.
right? Everyone is challenged to pay their
Yeah.
bills. And so it's a challenge. And I really commend the people that are giving. I think that's such an incredible story that there's people out there that are saying, hey, here's an extra $5-10 a month, like whatever that is. I would just love, even for council, to kind of chat with admin to say, is there anything else we could be doing
Yeah.
to promote and support that? Right?
And I'll let Denise chime in, but I know some of the promotions that we do, I mean, her team really promotes this across the community on our website and at different events. All of our bottle collections within City Hall are donated to
This.
community warmth. So I believe at the recycling depot, they do, if you want to take your bottles in, they do have an account for community warmth where you can say you want your donations or your bottles amounts to go to community warmth. So they will do that down there. I know at some of our city functions, we've done like 50-50 draws where we will donate to community warmth as well. But Denise is well versed on this, so I'll let her speak as well.
Through the chair, so the bottle donations generally bring in $630 a year donation from City Hall bottle donations.
You guys
We-
drink more.
We invite corporate sponsors as well to do promotions. So we've had some corporate sponsors in previous years as well, do donut fundraisers as well, donating their proceeds of sale that day to the community warmth program. So we've had engagement from the community on some of the sponsors as well. So we're always looking to engage that. Spikes in the years before in donations when during COVID, there was a COVID relief that was given on behalf of City Council in the amount of $136. We then said anyone who did not need that $136 on their utility bill could then donate it to community warmth. So we had about $13,000 of donations from that during COVID come into community warmth as well. So depending on corporate donations as well, sometimes we'll have a donation for $5,000 coming directly from a business or $3,000 or someone that has brought something forward to their employer that they want this as the charity of the year for their employer to donate. But we're always looking for ways to.
Yeah. Skateboard Association could do a bottle brand.
Good, yeah. I think there's lots of opportunities and I recognize there's also lots of other organizations out there that are trying to raise money, right? So it's a challenge of like, we want to promote this because it's an amazing thing. But then there's, dozens of other organizations out there that would also be liking us to promote, to be promoting what they're doing, right? So I just think the broader conversation for us, even in council, is how do we promote the great things that are happening in our city, especially something like this that I think really gets to the challenge that some people are facing, right? So we'd love to just have some additional conversations with you around what can we do, what could we be doing to be promoting this. So,
Yeah.
but thank you for the work you're doing here. It's great.
Yes, and thank you for the presentation on it.
Can I just ask one question through the chair? When we have a deficit, do we just only give out what we've received then to cover the costs? I take it, right? Even though our ask is for more, like on these charts. So
Yes.
we don't cover the extra cost, do we? We just
So
cover what we have, right?
Salvation Army will fund it through their own reserves sometimes as well,
Oh, okay.
right? So knowing that on the first of the month that they're going to get another $1,700, they may do that. They may delay the timing of payment and communicate with us so that we can either reconnect the customer or not reconnect, knowing that that money is coming at a certain point in time. So
I mean, that in itself is a good news story too, that they're actually putting in to help the community also with people in need. So I don't know if we do that enough either. So,
Would, Managing Director Barda, would you be able to email me the contact information for the person at the Salvation Army?
Yes.
And then maybe we could
set something
set up a meeting
Yeah.
to meet, three of us to meet with them and
see what we can do.
collectively we
Yeah.
can come up with a way to also promote the other services that they provide, like you mentioned, the budgeting and the cooking and stuff.
I just had a thought, and it's a thought, it's not, it hasn't been baked very well. So I challenge myself saying it publicly. I'm not sure if it's the right thing, but we just had a conversation about reducing a fee, which I think is really important. And I do think it's, obviously, that's a $34 fee one time. But is there an opportunity to reduce it less and, or have the city donate that money specifically to this sort of program, right? So, right, we just said we saved people $50,000 by reducing a fee. Is there an opportunity to reduce that fee a little bit less, but to donate that fee to something like this? Is that, do you hear what I'm
I
saying?
understand you're saying make it, instead of making it $10, make it $12 and donate $2 per fee.
That's right, something like that.
That fee is probably, we probably don't collect it that often, do we? Well, I guess 45,000.
And I don't want to complicate things. And again, we're helping other people by reducing that fee. So maybe it complicates it by, like I said, it wasn't a fully baked out thought. It was just, how do we?
Through the chair, I just want to bring an awareness as well with the provincial supports for utilities for Albertans facing utility disconnection and arrears. They fund our utility customers when they're facing disconnection. So they generally fund for 200,000 to 250,000 a year. They expect to use community resources first and before they fund. So often the Salvation Army will be picking up the ones that have fallen through the cracks that aren't getting supported.
When you say $200,000, you mean in our community? So this is the first stop and there's another $200,000 available once this is exhausted.
Yes, we generally, collections usually does the intake through Alberta Works first. And if they don't support, then we then intake through Salvation Army to pick up ones that might have fallen through.
Last resort.
Well, it's
We're at the
it's
bottom
the
end.
first resort. The more we raise, the less the province
Oh,
spends.
yeah. Okay.
Okay, that's a good
Right.
takeaway.
Yeah.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Any other questions on community wealth? Okay, we'll move on to the 2025 annual summary of utility and taxation collection.
Yes, so this item is for information only. On an annual basis, the Customer Care and Billing Department bills and collects revenue for utility services consisting of 400,000 utility statements generating 189 million revenue, and municipal taxation, which consists of 30,000 taxation notices generating 126 million revenue. That includes the education and municipal portion of that. Our collection service, our customer service and collections team do an outstanding job in working with the customers to assist them with their payments. They work with both the customer and the social agencies to come up with payment arrangements for customers to get their bills paid. They also assisted customers with form completion applications and assessments to help speed up the process from the support and social agencies. So I'll maybe just ask Denise to take us through some of the stats on the utilities and taxes for committee's information.
Thank you through the chair. So this is basically an annual report that we provide basically on the statistical health of where we are in the collection process, as well as what it looks like for trends in our community. So cost of living pressures tend to still be high for our community, with what we're hearing in the department being mostly rent and grocery inflation being some of the major challenges for our customer base. On the utility side, it is typical year over year that we'll see about 8 to 10% of our utility customers that are in continual arrears. So that represents about 2,700 customers each month. When we look through, I'm just going to refer to the utility chart on the second page. We track the trends that are happening year over year. So when we look at the amount of accounts that we disconnected in 2025, it went up about 9%. So we disconnected 684 customers last year. Disconnect warnings, excuse me. We issue before utilities are disconnected, we issue what's called a disconnect warning notice. And that allows the customer to then make payment arrangements to avoid the disconnection and also help us then advocate if we need support through Alberta Works, Salvation Army. So the amount of disconnect warnings compared to next shows the success rate as well, in how successful the team is in avoiding disconnects for some of our clients. The amount of payment arrangements that are coming in, what our utility receivables are. So our receivables and utilities went down by $2 million. Our arrears also went down, and it's interesting to note because the arrears and utilities also fluctuate by the annual commodity charges and rates that are being charged, as well as if there's commercial properties in that rate base as well. So as commercial properties fall possibly into utility arrears, they may be selling to other potential buyers as well. So that'll fluctuate large numbers on the receivable side and the arrears side. No change in the arrears customers. It usually follows a trend of 8%. We list in here the community warmth donations that was down by 14%. Income support, this is the Alberta Works income support. So in 2025, they supported our community with $200,000 in supports. We noticed during COVID, when we had a lot of relief programs, their commitment to our community was quite a bit lower because it had to be exhausted at the community level first before they would kick in to help. This number is an unofficial number coming from income support because this is the number that we're tracking as receivables. We do not know sometimes the ones that they're handing just checks to or supporting as well. But these are the ones that are coming through our actual intake system that we know. And utility transfer to taxes. So when a utility customer owns their property, instead of disconnection, we can transfer the utilities to their property tax roll. And so we transferred 1.1 million in 2025 to property taxes, which then spans that collection period, depending where they are in the tax recovery cycle. But generally, it can be a 4-year payment cycle. And then we have our annual write-offs of uncollectible utilities. And we have best in industry class at 0.14% of write-offs compared to billed revenue. On the tax side, when we look at the tax arrears, there was a decrease of 1.5 or decrease of 6%. Our receivables, current and arrears, went up by 20%. But if you look onto the utility arrears to taxes, that was 21%. That's a direct correlation of when the utility transfers are coming off of the utility receivable being added into the current tax receivable. So that's where that 20 and 21% is coming from. And then property sales, property tax sale auctions. So we had none at the auction last year, and we had one at the auction the year before. And then this is the tax notifications registered. So that has went down. We had 60 that we registered last year, 81 the year before. And we're working on that number as well to be registered this March as well. So hopefully it will fall in line with the 60 again. And then designated manufactured homes, they have liens registered against the actual mobile, not because they don't have a land title. And so that's went down. We registered 20 last year.
So I'm just looking at this. So Do you guys have any questions?
No.
This is just a brief. We don't have to action anything through council. No questions, eh?
Not specifically, I mean, it's tough to like, okay, so we're seeing a 9% increase in disconnects for arrears, but for me, when I read that, it's hard to know, is that a trend? Why is that? Does that point to something more? So I think I have questions that I don't know what questions I have out of that, other than, okay, that's a 9% increase, but what does that mean? And I don't know that we can answer what that means, can we?
Through the chair, it is hard to answer, other than the awareness of that's the volume of disconnects of actual utilities that are disconnected in the year. And that it's reasonable within a certain threshold for what we've experienced the year before.
I appreciate that, because you can take that to say, you can, oh, well, does that mean we're having affordability as a bigger issue now because we're seeing a 9% increase in arrears? And so you could make that assumption, but I don't know if that's a fair assumption because there's a lot of additional context behind that, right? So, but I do think it's definitely something to be aware of.
Anything for you, Brian?
Oh, just staff is very busy with the amount of disconnects that are going out, right? Or the arrangements for payment and disconnect warnings. There's a lot of information that staff is busy accumulating this and then sending it out to the people too, right? So there's no rest for the wicked in that department. So, because one's up 21%, so that's a lot of work in behind it, right? So.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. And so if I look at that as well, it's 10%, right, of disconnect warnings to actual disconnects is roughly 10 or 11%. I think the 6,400 to 680. What precipitates a disconnect warning? Is it 2 months, 3 months of non-paid? Or, yeah, what is that?
Very good question through the chair. With disconnects and arrears, so basically a customer would get a disconnect warning notice after they've been unpaid for 2 months. So it's 60 days, and please keep in mind that they would have another bill that's currently ready to go as well. So when a customer gets disconnect, 3 months in arrears or 3 months behind in payments. During the winter time, we have to follow Alberta winter rules as well. So we can't disconnect in the winter without using a load limiter. So we also use load limiting during the winter to minimize that amount as well. Customers, to avoid a disconnect notice or a disconnect warning notice, they activate the payment arrangement so that it takes them out of that collection routine. So we encourage them to be contacting us. So those payment arrangements are outside of the disconnect warning. So we do have segments of customers that have challenges in payment ability, and they do know that early intervention is required. So they will do the payment arrangements to keep them out of that disconnect warning notice and keep them out of that disconnect routine.
Thank you for that. And we do have a payment, like a automatic payment, but they have to come set it up at City Hall, or they have to call City Hall to set that up. Is that correct?
All the services that can be available on the website as well.
Okay.
So, or they can email, but yes, we have monthly EFT that is offered. So that's based on the balance. We also have a program called budget billing. And so that kind of spreads the highs and lows of utilities. So, typically, that summer months can be really high demand on utilities with water consumption, air conditioning uses. And then the same with the winter months can be really high with gas and electric as well. And then so you have shoulder months that are the spring and September that are typically lower consumption months. So what budget billing does is takes a typical year of consumption patterns for a customer and levelizes that billing. So instead of having a bill that might be 251 month and then 150 or variations, it will stabilize it so that they can manage that within a budget.
And do we charge for the warning? If someone gets a disconnect warning, is there a charge on that?
There's a $20 charge for each disconnect warning issue that is noticed, that is sent out for the notice. And so that's why the payment arrangement. So if they contact before that time, they avoid those fees as well.
And to get a disconnect warning, you have had to not pay your bill for, 2 months, was that correct?
61 days.
61 days. So now that means you would almost have to not be on a monthly plan, because if you were on a monthly plan, it would get paid automatically. Except if you didn't have the money in your account, you would get charged the NFT, or not NFT, NSF, sorry, NSF charge. Now, and I don't mean to complicate this. I just want to make sure I'm understanding. If you don't have the money in your account, you get charged an NSF. Does that also count as not paying your bill, and you're going to get a disconnect warning on top of that?
So what happens when any returned items come back is that the customer, depending on how you're enrolled, some are enrolled on e-billing, some are on paper, they will get notification that your payment on such and such a date for this amount had been returned dishonored. Please contact us on how you want to make arrangements to pay that. So it really depends where they are in that. So if they're up for disconnect and that happens, we can delay that disconnect. So typically it depends on the customer's communication as well with the department, right? Because if they're communicating their payment obligation, or they're less likely to get disconnected. Right, because they're working out an acceptable plan and the timeline of that plan to avoid disconnection.
Okay. And I might embarrass myself a little bit on this one, but I think it's important. I had a business, and up in Briar Park, we had a building, and I'm one of the 2024 disconnect warnings, because in the summer we were so incredibly busy, and I think we started there in May. And in the summer, like from May till September, we were really, really busy. I thought we were on a payment plan, or like and then all of a sudden I got this thing in the mail that said disconnect warning. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And anyways, and then I used that. I came to City Hall, worked it all out, paid what owed, and then got myself up on a monthly payment plan, and then everything was fine. So I imagine that's why there's only 10%, because I imagine that the majority of people would be in the same situation that I was in, where for whatever reason they lost sight of it, and then they're able to come back and get themselves taken care of. Right? Yeah. Anyways, just saying, I forgot to pay my bill for a couple months. I know. And I did get one of those disconnect warnings, so, but it only happened.
Tell that story during the election.
No, I didn't. But I learned from it. All right. I learned from it.
Okay, and item number 7 is Corporate Services Division Capital and One-Time Operating Projects, Policies, and Bylaws enforce and list of outstanding motions. So this is something council asked to be broken out by department, right?
Yeah, so these are the lists that went to open council, and then were redirected to each standing committee to further review and discuss as required. So the lists are here, and I can help with any questions, or
Okay.
if not, I will find the answer out for you. So.
Okay, I don't have any questions at this time. I'll see if either of you do as well, but I think the intention of this from council was so that we can look through our committee's list. There's 3 lists, I guess 3 different things there, and see if we have any questions we want to bring back to council. And if council, other members of council have questions, they can come to us with those questions, and then we can bring them here and ask. So at this time, I don't have any questions, but we would be leaving this open for us to look at and for other counselors to bring their questions to us on. It's my understanding.
Yeah, I would say for next meeting, we would probably have some additional ones as we could, because this is happening in the other committees
Yes.
as well, right? So
Yeah.
I think for the next meeting, we would definitely come prepared with some specific questions on these. So
Yeah. Councilor Morgan?
Yeah, there's just one question when, like, some of them are completed, right? So, and there's some extra money that's in some of them. Where does that,
That will go back to the funding source. So if it was funded through reserves, then we would return the unused funds back to the reserve, whether it be operating or capital
Okay.
reserve.
so when we see a deficit of $46,000 on the one for the city clerk for the election?
Yeah.
Do we not cover that, or how does that work?
We will cover that.
Through a different process?
Yeah, so as
Each
far as
part is different, I take it, right, of where the money's coming from?
correct, yeah. So as part of our year-end process, if there are any items that are closed off, which the 25 election program would have been, you'll see a briefing note come forward it'll come through council, through audit committee to council, and we'll highlight the items that were over budget, but we also show the ones that are under budget. So sometimes those under budget items will go to fund the overages. So it sometimes balances out more than not. We do put money back into the reserves.
So seeing that on the election, can we send a bill to the provincial government for the deficit?
I think we asked that question at one point in time. I'm not sure.
No.
No.
Well, you can send it, whether or not.
Yeah.
True. Whether or not they pay it is another.
I mean, that
Maybe
was
careers.
That's
it's part and parcel of their doing, so you know what I mean, so.
I do want to note maybe just a couple things on here. So we did include mayors, city manager, city clerk, people services, those departments, a standing committee that they would come through. So we just included them as part of corporate services. And then I did notice an error under general municipal revenues. The 2026 grant contingency shows $50 and it should be $500 as budgeted, as approved budgeted. So it's just a typo there.
Thank you.
Okay, so we will come prepared with more questions from ourselves and our colleagues next time,
Yeah. If there's any that they bring up.
if there's any that they bring up. And then last item is action items. Standing items.
We do not have any items on our list currently, so.
Something.
We did have an outstanding motion.
Yes.
That hasn't made it on the action item list. That's the public participation policy, which will be coming forward in the next little while here. So probably in March, it'll start making its way through committee.
Okay, excellent. Okay. Did anybody have any other questions or comments before we close this meeting? Oh, seeing none, then we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.